The content provided in this video and on our website is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as, and translates to, legal advice, professional instruction, OR management direction. CamWise is not acting as your legal counsel, OR assuming liability for actions taken based on this content. For specific legal interpretations of your association's CC&Rs and state laws, always consult a qualified attorney.
Welcome, everyone. So if you've just unpacked your very last box, met the new neighbors, and are currently staring down your first massive set of community guidelines, or hey, maybe you just got your first warning letter because your grass is literally half an inch too tall, well, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're walking through an explainer of the Homeowners Mandate, Rights and Governance in the HOA. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this. Look, as a new homeowner stepping into a governed community, it can honestly feel a little bit like navigating a maze blindfolded, right? But today, I'm going to act as your advocate. We're going to break down exactly how community governance works. We're mapping out where your rights begin, where the board's authority ends, and exactly how you can step up to effectively monitor and even challenge neighborhood leadership when you need to.
Now, this is a question every single resident asks eventually. You pay the fees, so you should have a say, right? I mean, it is completely valid to feel totally frustrated when you're writing a check every single month for community fees, but you feel like you're just on the outside looking in when the actual decisions are being made. It kind of feels like taxation without representation sometimes. But here is the real truth of the matter. You absolutely do have a say. It's just that the power you hold as a regular homeowner is functionally very different from the power held by the board of directors. You actually hold incredible structural power, and today we're going to uncover exactly how to wield it.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be covering the power hierarchy, board authority, membership authority, your right to information, and finally, organizing. Let's get started. Section 1, the power hierarchy, finding your voice. So, first things first, an HOA is not a monarchy where a few people just get to arbitrarily dictate the laws. Everything, and I mean everything, is drawn from a legal framework, specifically your CC&Rs and your bylaws. You can really think of these as your neighborhood's constitution. Before anyone makes a single move, these documents establish the exact boundaries of authority. Verifying that the board is acting in strict compliance with these specific documents, that is your very first line of defense. They dictate the rules of the game, like whether a specific community action only needs board approval or if it legally requires full membership approval.
And this brilliantly illustrates that strict line between the two lanes of power. On one side, board authority handles the daily operations, like fixing a pothole or running the neighborhood sprinklers. But on the other side, membership authority controls the long-term money and property rights, like, say, deciding to build $1 million clubhouse. So you don't vote on the sprinklers, right? But you absolutely do vote on the massive things that permanently affect your investment.
Moving right along to Section 2, day-to-day board authority.
Let's look a bit closer at the routine decisions that fall strictly within the board's power. The board has the authority to sign contracts, so meaning they're the ones who hire the landscaper or the property management firm. They handle enforcement and fines, they approve the regular annual operating budget, and they adopt minor rule changes like adjusting pool hours or updating leash rules. Now, while you absolutely have the right to suggest a better landscaping company or voice your complaints about the dog rules, the board ultimately holds the final vote on these daily operational items. All right, let's see how this builds in Section 3, the big stuff, membership authority. This is where we shift to the massive decisions where the board absolutely must come to you. They legally need your vote for amendments to the governing documents, board elections, and major capital improvements. And guys, this is also where you really need to watch for red flags. If the board tries to push through some massive, unbudgeted special assessment for a pet project, or suddenly wants to change the property use rules without a community vote, yeah, that is a huge red flag that totally justifies immediate pushback. Choosing who actually sits on the board through elections is your most direct, potent line of power. Now, when we talk about amending those governing documents, like actually changing the CC&Rs or the bylaws, it usually doesn't just require a simple majority. It very often requires a massive supermajority of 67% to 75% of all members. Just to put that into perspective for a second, it's hard enough to get 75% of a neighborhood to agree on what kind of pizza to order for a block party, let alone changing foundational property laws. And that's exactly the point. This extremely high percentage is a built-in shield, specifically designed to protect your property rights from small, runaway groups. So the absolutely crucial mechanism here is what's called thresholds. Your CC&Rs contain a specific hard financial limit. If a special assessment exceeds that dollar amount, boom, it triggers a mandatory community vote. The board simply cannot force an out-of-budget financial burden onto residents all by themselves once that threshold is crossed. Honestly, finding that exact dollar amount in your CC&Rs should be on your immediate to-do list after watching this.
Okay, on to Section 4, your right to information.
We are stepping into highly actionable territory now. This is your accountability toolkit. You have the legal right to access and copy official community records, usually just by submitting a formal written request to your management company. If you want to use budget reviews to detect fiscal mismanagement, you need to create a mental checklist. First up, pull the official budget. Second, request the meeting minutes. Third, verify those minutes against the actual vendor contracts and community spending. You want to keep a log of any inconsistencies you find. Like a payment approved for $5,000 in the minutes, but mysteriously billed at $10,000 in the ledger. If something looks like a red flag, you have the absolute right to scrutinize that paperwork.
And what happens if you do find those red flags? Well, that brings us to Section 5, the ultimate recourse, organizing. The major professional takeaway from our source material really boils down to this one simple truth. The most important power you have is the vote. If leadership is making irresponsible fiscal decisions or abusing their power, this is your ultimate equalizer. But to actually make that vote count, you have to master communication strategies at your homeowner meetings. That means standing up, asking direct questions on the record, and staying incredibly calm, factual, and persistent. Now, what's really powerful here is your ultimate 3-step action plan. Step 1, inspect the official record so you can gather the hard facts. Step 2, organize the members. To build a solid voting block, you're going to need some real campaign tactics. You've got to knock on doors, distribute flyers with the concrete facts you found, and maybe set up a dedicated neighborhood social media group. And finally, step 3, vote them out. You can run a successful board election campaign simply by presenting a clear, fiscally responsible alternative to the current leadership. Remember, you hold the structural authority to replace them.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this somewhat provocative question to chew on. Who holds the real power in your neighborhood? I mean, the board manages the day-to-day, absolutely, no question. But the actual foundation of the community, the authority to choose exactly who gets to sit in those seats, that rests entirely with you. So go grab a cup of coffee, crack open those CC&Rs, find those financial thresholds, and really understand your rights. You have the mandate. Now it's time to use it wisely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.